Robyn didn't just destroy the Brown family. She fundamentally changed how the Brown family interpersonal relationship dynamics work. She changed the family culture. This is how she fundamentally destroyed the Brown family and why the Brown family does not exist anymore as a polygamous family. Now, it's funny to me because if you listen to Robyn talk about it now, she always regales us with the tale and story of how when she entered into the family,
they were this perfect family and they were all so lovely. And I just wanted to be a part of this wonderful polygamous community and partake and receive my heavenly hereafter gifts by joining this family.
That's what she always tells us. In fact, she presents it like the only reason why she joined the Brown family was because she wanted to get her piece of perfect polygamy pie. And because she entered into this whole family with a pure heart, she's now horrified and shocked to find that everything wasn't perfect and somehow she's been deceived. The fact of the matter is that maybe the family wasn't perfect when she came into the family. And I'm not going to argue that that was the case because no family is perfect. No relationship is perfect. If you want perfection in relationships, it doesn't exist. What I will say is that the family had existed, they coexisted, and they survived for almost 2 decades when Robyn came into the family. That's saying something. Now, you don't last 20 years in any relationship without some give and go, without some understanding, and without full participation of everybody involved. Now, here's the funny thing about what happened. When Robyn came into the family, she acted like she came into the family and she was just merely going to give her input. But here's the secret to the sauce. Nobody enters into a professional championship team thinking they're all of a sudden going to revamp the whole thing. Could you imagine if somebody came in fresh out of high school talking about they're going to join the Bulls team with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the rest of them with 5 championships, all of them got rings on their fingers, and you say to that crew,
I'm going to change the game. We're going to start playing it my way because I know better.
You serious?
Now, the big question is, what experience do you bring to make you think that you know how to revamp the team? Why do you believe that all of a sudden you're the best person to change this team for the better, make this family better? Why do you think you know how to do that? And Robyn's response, because at the time we have to remember she had no experience in polygamy. She didn't have come from a polygamous family where she was married to a guy and had sister wives. That wasn't the case. So the only response that Robyn could have presented to anybody who would have actually asked her would have simply been,
my mom was a weekend polygamist. That's how we did it. I watched it all growing up. When I was a child, my stepfather had come by the house on the weekends, Friday through Sunday, and then he would spend Monday through Friday with his family in a different part of the state. And we would pretend like we don't know each other when we were out in public. That's my experience with polygamy.
And then I would simply say, one, monogamists have that same experience. You know what we call it? The side chick. That's what we call it. We call it the side chick. We don't call it the sister wife. We call it the side chick. It's a different term, but it means kind of the same thing if you put it into those parameters. The second thing, seeing ain't doing. And it damn sure ain't living it. Okay, you can see something happen and maybe you kind of understand what's going on, but until you put yourself in that position, you might not actually understand the ins and outs and day to day of actually what goes into maintaining a polygamous relationship. It's easy for you to sit there and talk about honeymoon relationships when your mama was only seeing your stepfather twice a week and she wasn't dealing with him on a daily basis. But the Brown family, the way they had oriented their family and their family culture and their interpersonal dynamic was that they were seeing each other daily. They were not only seeing each other, but they were relying on each other, which is a completely different experience than what Robyn had talked about. But of course, because Kody never let common sense get in the way of him making decisions, he decided that he was going to roll out the red carpet for this damsel of destruction and let her destroy his family and break it down to the bare bolts and foundation of what a family actually is. And that's what we saw when we were watching the TLC show. Now, when we first met the Brown family, when Kody was in the car at season 1, episode 1, and he's sitting there,
"Hi, I'm Kody Brown, and then welcome to my life. This is amazing."
And he had talked about how he was blessed with 3 marriages, and if he was good with 3 marriages, then the religion and the Lord and everybody else thinks that he would be good with another marriage, and so he could get 4 marriages. And that was the position that he had taken. But the funny thing about that is that he wasn't good with those 3 marriages. But you couldn't tell him that.
I like marriage, and I'm a repeat offender, so I have adopted a faith that embraces that lifestyle. In fact, it recommends it, and like to reward good behavior. So if you're good with 1 marriage, they figure you'll be good with 2. I hope they think I'll be good with 4.
In fact, this refrain was repeated during his interview with Mormonism Live podcast, where he had talked about how successful he was with having these wives. And that's what made Robyn want to join the family, because he was so good at being a polygamous husband and he was running and managing his family to perfection. And that's why she wanted to join the family, because she was highly sought after. But because he was so good, so amazing, and so wonderful, she decided she wanted to join his family. And then we later learned that this was all a lie. None of it made sense. Robyn had her own agenda. Why she joined the family, she brought her own packages, her own weight, and her own ideas on how polygamy was going to be carried. Kody was committed not to join to the big picture and the family. He was committed to attaining and retaining his relationship with Robyn, which had nothing to do with the rest of the Brown family, had nothing to do with the wives. In fact, the wives, the kids, and everything else was merely a vehicle for him to use so that he could get on TV, so he could attain the person that he wanted to be with, which is fundamentally different than the culture which existed prior to Robyn coming into the family. Now, we can go further and talk about how the family was not only struggling in the existing marriages, but they were struggling financially as well. Christine complained in the first episode about how Robyn coming into the family was going to destroy the family. Janelle and Kody feeling the financial pressures. Janelle said in an interview on the couch,
"We're barely keeping our heads above water as is, and I don't know how we're going to bring this other person into the family and take care of them too."
Now, what Janelle didn't say, and it was clearly implied,
"I don't know how we're going to take care of this person, her kids, and her debts, plus pay all her bills and be able to take care of the family that we're already responsible for."
At that time, they had 12 kids. Christine was pregnant with 13 kids on the way. That's truly coming. And Kody is out there gallivanting all over Utah, spending money on tolls, gas, wear and tear on the vehicle, entertainment, and everything else so that he can try to attain another wife or another burden and another bill to bring back to the family. Then, of course, you had Mary and Kody. The whole thing with Mary and Kody was a big lie. Kody tried to pretend like Mary was the keystone to the family. She's the one that introduced him to Robyn, brought Robyn into the family, and he was so indebted to Mary because she was the cornerstone of the Brown family polygamy experience. The truth of the matter is that when he met Robyn, he took his wedding band from Mary and melted it down. That is insane. And again, that demonstrates how far away they were as far as their relationships were concerned at that time, and how this was all a lie. This wasn't a perfect family that Robyn joined. Robyn joined a fractured family, and then because the family was broken, it was divided, it was easily manipulated, and then molded into the form and shape that she wanted it to take. This is why she was able to take such advantage of it. And even speaking about the ring, the idea that you would melt a ring down, look, most married people, if they want to, disregard their relationship. They just take the ring off and put it in their pocket. I mean, the most you might hear is that somebody's at the club and they lose their mind, they take their ring off and throw it across the parking lot. Nobody takes a special trip to a jeweler, pays money to have a damn piece of jewelry melted down so the person doesn't have control over you. That's insane. And you know he came back acting different after one of those 5-hour trips.
I think I'm falling in love with you.
Hello, it's Daddy. Hey, darling, put Mommy on the phone. Yeah, Barbara, it's Richie. Yeah, look it, I ain't never coming home no more. Take it easy.
Kody didn't just get putty whipped.
I thought I saw a putty cat. I did saw a putty cat.
Now, for purposes of this video, I'm going to focus on 3 specific areas of change where I think Robyn came in, fundamentally changed the family and destroyed it. The first area I'll talk about is the family culture, power dynamic, how things are decided. How were they able to make decisions within the family? They went from a majority rules, one wife, one vote scenario to let's have everyone discuss the situation and issues. The OG3, you guys give us all your thoughts, all your positions, and where you are with stuff. Robyn is going to hang back in the cut. She's going to look around and pretend like she's too shy to talk and not really give her opinion
because she's just sitting there thinking about what's going on, because that's how she's going to be able to formulate her opinion, because she doesn't know what she's going to do.
Then after everybody gets finished talking, she'll go off with Kody, have a private conversation where she consult with him, tell him what to do. Then he comes back and informs the team. Welcome to the new culture. This is the new way of doing things. And that fundamentally changed how the wives interacted with the family, because now the wives were fundamentally powerless in this situation. And because they didn't feel like they had power in this situation, they didn't feel like they were actually making decisions in this situation, it erodes the motivation that they have to participate in the situation because they're no longer invested in the family. This was the first stage of where Robyn was starting to tear away at the fabric of the family. The second part, where we can look at and see where Robyn was coming in and she was making fundamental changes for the family dynamic, family relationships, where Robyn had actually tried to coup the kids. She tried to take over her position, Christine and even Janelle and Mary's position with the children, because she was the younger wife. She tried to relate to them, especially the older kids, on a different level. And that classically backfired in her face in one of the episodes where they were talking about group dating.
Here's my concern about dating. I don't want our kids having romantic experiences in high school.
Robyn tells me all these stories about how many guys she was with, and you
dated one day.
Dated.
I could not single date until I was 18.
Now, the second way that this whole thing fell apart and she was attacking the family culture, it was actually when she started attacking time. Because if we think about it, since the Brown family and slash significantly the AUB version of polygamy is patriarchal in nature, that means it's centered around the husband or the man. So everybody involved is always trying to get the time and attention and affection from the husband and or the father in the family. And so because they're always trying to work for that, that becomes the most prized resource in the family. And because Robyn was who she was able to come in and not only capitalize, but she was able to monopolize a lot of Kody's time. And this actually happened even before they were married. Because as you recall, there was a point where Christine was sitting on the couch, and this is one of the first real arguments they were having as far as Robyn's placement in the family. And Christine had said that she didn't think it was fair that Robyn was getting as much time as the wives were, and she wasn't even a wife.
I don't think a fiance has the same privilege as a wife. I don't think he should be saying 1 out of every 4 nights he spends time with Robyn. That's not fair to me. When they're married, she gets equal time. I disagree with it. I disagreed with it because of the fact that the courtship had to go for so long. So it was hard for me to have Christine say that. But as far as time, that was needed. That was absolutely needed for the kids, for me to build this relationship with him.
Now, the crazy part is Christine was actually sticking up for herself, and she was laying out a position of the family culture. Now, the position of the family culture, because if we come out and say that Robyn and Kody were actually knocking boots before they got married, doing the do and doing the nasty and all that, they would get offended by me simply implying anything about their sex and sexuality, you know, in general, but certainly implying that they were having these types of relations before they were married. Now, the funny part about that is this. The reason why that's so important is because by their family and church culture, they are not allowed to have these types of relationships, close-knit relationships, because there is a fundamental difference between a husband to wife relationship versus a husband and somebody he's courting relationship. They are not the same. They are not alike. And I don't mean that just because of A minor. I'm just saying they are not alike. And when rubber meets the road, what Christine was saying was it's not fair, it's not right because you're not a wife. And according to our culture, you're not playing by the rules. And Robyn said,
well, I'm going to slap you with some excuses and you just going to have to take it, Christine, because that's the way I'm rolling.
She provides the excuse that because it took so long for them to get married, that all of a sudden she should be given special leeway. And she should have special allowances because they would have been married way before had things worked out. The reason why they weren't able to get married sooner was because Kody didn't have money. They didn't have the finances in place for them to get married, which will tail into the final thing that I'll talk about in a moment. But before we get there, let's talk about how Mary had even given some pushback on this. Now, keep in mind, Mary, for the most part, was always trying to be on Robyn's good side. She understood, like, to Mary's credit, I think that Mary understood that Kody preferred Robyn's company. Mary wanted to be on Robyn's good side so that Robyn can put in a good word for Mary and or Kody would notice how Mary is accepting Robyn, and because she's accepting the woman that he loves, she might actually get a break and she might get some leeway as far as that time consideration was concerned. But let's take a listen to what Mary had to say.
Once the wedding happens, it's like, fine, go do what you want, spend every, fourth night with her. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I get it. It's just really hard for me because I moved my whole entire life. My kids, pulled them out of school, changed jobs, school, life, everything to be here close to the family. But I'm not allowed, or I shouldn't have this time with him.
Now, this is crazy to me because, as I said before, she's talking about, well, when I entered into the family, it wasn't fair because I had to change my whole life and the way I was doing everything. I had to pull my kids out of school so that I could move closer to the family. That's something you would have had to do anyway. If you were going to marry Kody and you were going to be part of the family, especially the way this particular family does their family culture with everybody being close by, then you would have to move your whole family and uproot your life. You would have to leave your job. And even then, when she left her job, you left your job and then went and sat in a house that the Brown family was renting for you. You weren't paying your bills. They were paying your bills. They were taking care of you. So what are we talking about? At the end of the day, that was also a struggle that the family had because everyone, part of the family culture, every one of the wives worked. All the wives worked. They all contributed financially to the family up until the time Robyn came into the family. Then all of a sudden, because Christine had some complications as far as struggling with postpartum, she was allowed to stay home. And because there was an opportunity for Christine to stay home, they simply piggybacked Robyn into her being able to stay home as well. And that became another part of the time issue because while they're staying home, Robyn is now available and Kody is spending more time at her house. And again, that becomes a fundamental breakdown of the family because now instead of Kody trying to split or divide his time evenly, he's favoring one wife over all wives And that creates a fundamental break to how they perceived not only the family dynamic as far as their relationships, but the time factor. And then, of course, we have to talk about the money.
Show me the money.
Say it with me one time, Jerry. Show me the money!
Now, the money is always a big thing for me because the money is a tangible way that we can look at how things changed, who got what, and where everybody is. And I think that that's where it's kind of fundamental for us to talk about the money. But when you talk about not only who has the most money coming into and then leaving the family, I think that there's also the big question or big point of how did they do the money? Early on, when the family was just the four of them, Christine, Mary, Janelle, and Kody, they had to bond together to make sure that the bills got paid. They not only struggled together, but that's how they thrived together and survived together. They had to work with each other in order to make it happen. Once Robyn came into the family and they were introduced, because it's not in this instance, it's not necessarily causation, but correlation. When Robyn came into the family, there was a correlation of them getting the TV show. Now, I would be willing to argue that because they had the TV show and the prospect and opportunity of all that additional money, which is why Robyn came into the family, Robyn coming into the family didn't necessarily bring that money in, and it wasn't a big change that she caused. It was a correlation. But with that correlation, they were able to afford to do things that they weren't able to afford doing before. They had extra money. They were able to pay their bills and they had residual money left over. And through those residual funds, money was being spent. Money was not being saved. Money was not being put away. How they perceived it was completely different. There's a point where Janelle specifically talked about what happened when the family first started and how they used to do money versus how they're doing money now.
Back in the day, our family used to run that we would use all the resources to help one person, then we would all rally to support the other person. That's how it always worked until the last 10 years or so. And all of a sudden it's been about, well, my estate, and everybody needs their own estate.
And now here's a funny thing. When they talk about my estate, what happened at this point 10 years prior? 10 years prior, the family had moved to sunny Las Vegas, and that's when they acquired those separate homes. Now, when they acquired those separate homes, everybody was working together and trying to figure stuff out, and they were pooling their money when Robyn had to pay her debts. Then the family could all come together and they could join forces to pay each other's bills. But the moment her debts were paid off and she was able to put a house in her name, now all of a sudden it's all about the estates and us having separate homes, dividing the money, keeping our own share of money. And then all of a sudden, when you start to pool that money and those resources, it all became about who can claw out the most money for themselves, as opposed to us being able to work together. That's a fundamental change to how the family perceived, or at least approached, their financial struggles, their financial issues, as well as the culture of their finances. So my argument is that when Robyn came into the family, she fundamentally changed the family in three places specifically, which helped her to take over and then ruin the family. First and foremost, she was able to change how the family dealt with each other, the interpersonal relationships. This is where I would classify the family culture. The second place where she was able to change the dynamics of the family was the issue of time and how they dealt with each other as far as time, where Kody spent his time, whether he spent his time with the wives or the kids. It all had fundamentally changed when Robyn came into the family. In the Lehigh house, they all were able to stay in that big house, and Kody was able to see all of his kids all of the time. But when Robyn came into the family, she specifically asked, kind of like what happened with her mom, her experience from her mom. We're changing the game. She came in and she made sure that the family was separate and you could only spend time with Kody on your time. And at that point, that's a fundamental change. So you had the time change. And then finally, of course, you had the financial change, where now all of a sudden, this is how it gets rise to the point where Kody and Robyn have a $1.7 million house that they were able to acquire and then sell, and then purchase a $2.1 million home in their name, where you have Janelle, Mary, and Christine struggling to do it for themselves. Now, granted, they were able to be successful, but that is in no way because of their time or contributions to the Brown family or anything that they had from the Brown family. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think about my 3 points, the family culture, the finances, and time? Or do you think that there's something else that Robyn came in and fundamentally changed, which aided to the destruction of the Brown family? Or do you think I'm completely wrong? Let me know down below in the comment section. That's my take. I'm James. This has been My Take on Reality, and I'm out.
'Cause I've been living life.